Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Screendaypodcast. I'm Aaron with Blue Ridge Screen Products.
I'm Chad with T-Shirt Specialty. We're coming to you live from Blue Ridge Studios in beautiful downtown Charlotte.
Back and forth with the bullshit. I know I said it before, I don't mean it. It's been a while since I had your attention, so it might hurt to hit it. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
There you go.
There we go.
There you
awesome
go.
Intro.
All right, so what happened to you this week? Anything cool?
One of the things I wanted to just shoot out to you was, you're familiar with ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
The AI component. There's a new thing out there called ScreenPrint GPT. Mm-hmm. Have you checked it out?
I have.
I have not been able to sign in, so I'm curious what it is, if it's worth its salt or not. So it essentially is a place where you can go and post your issues with screen printing and get some sort of answer or relief, is my understanding. Yeah.
So I will say, from my experience, I think simple questions, it does an okay job.
Yep.
But it's just like anything with AI. It's going out there and looking for anything that's on the internet.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of diluted stuff.
So, my response to that would be nothing replaces, your business partner or your, screen print supplier. And I guess if you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a very good screen print supplier who doesn't know anything about screen printing, then yeah, I think it's a great tool because but for those people who live in an area that actually has a supplier that knows about screen printing and who can advise, because some of what people are looking for is very situational, and it really just depends on their setup and what they're doing.
Nice.
That I think again, depending on the question, I think it can give an okay answer. But again, I don't think anything's going to replace, the knowledge.
30 years of experience, yeah. That's what I was curious about. And like I said, I haven't had a chance to dive into it because it won't let me sign in. So I don't know if it's already gone defunct or not. But I just thought it might be a resource for some people if they're struggling with, how to get white to look shiny or, whatever other issues might be out there.
Yeah, I think I see that a lot. Like I see questions all the time on the internet on how do I get a good white.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. And I don't know how to put this. It's the same process every single time. And if you're not getting a good white, and as long as you're using one of the top 4 ink manufacturers, the reality of it is, as long as you're putting on your emulsion the right way,
Yep.
and you're getting the correct film thickness,
Sure.
and you're using the correct mesh, and it's the correct tension, and it's not an old screen or a crappy screen, you should have no problems getting your white to print correctly. And if you are, then typically it's either a setup issue, squeegee angle, squeegee pressure, which you should be working with your screen print professional anyway to figure that out. But really, you shouldn't have a problem.
So one of the things I've heard is, if you really want to get a good white, you got to start with an 86 mesh.
Yeah, exactly.
Cover it
just
with a
really
110.
just lay it on, slather it on there.
Yeah, see if you can't get a brick mold on there. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the weight.
The bulletproofness.
The bulletproof. If you can have a bulletproof print, that's the way to go. In case all you guys are wondering, yes, we are being sarcastic.
Yeah. Stay away from that model.
Anything else? So what did
how about you?
By the way, so what did you learn through this? Share with everybody your experience so far with your install. So is it the equipment that was wrong? Something was wrong with the equipment, or
let's talk about this because we recently put in a 1214 Anatol or 1412, however you want to say it, full servo volt, and it works fantastic. I mean, all the gadgets that we looked at are functioning and they work well. The install could have been a better process. That's my big knock on it, is that it's been a challenge from getting it off the truck to getting it installed to getting the right power to it. And when you make that jump to a new piece of equipment, there are a few things that you should know that really should be part of the process of making sure people know before they have it in-house.
Okay, tips. So someone's bought a new auto, right?
Yeah.
They just bought a new auto, right? I'm going to get it off the truck. What's a tip you would give out there to everybody?
Make sure you have some fork extensions. One of these things is about 8,000 pounds. And if you don't want your forklift to tip over or your brand new press to fall off the back of a truck, you're going to need
some extended
fork
forks.
extensions.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that would have been helpful.
Yeah.
We actually made that work without extensions. We used pallet jacks and a fork, and it was quite the process. But the biggest tip is to make sure you have the right power supply coming in your facility, because without it, there's a significant number of issues that it's going to cause.
Yeah, for those who don't know, most presses you can order in either single phase or 3-phase, and if you order the wrong one, or you think you have a certain power and you don't, and it comes in, what ends up happening?
Well, you blow a few motors, and then you replace those, and then you blow them again because, like, oh, well, that couldn't be the problem.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, we went through that process a couple of times. We finally have it in, and, the process now of getting, in our case, the county to come out and put in the electric service we need has been an incredible process. I mean, we're talking it may take us 8 to 10 weeks to get that to happen. Whew. So now we're operating on a 3-phase generator, a portable 3-phase generator that's powered by diesel.
Wow,
so,
I didn't even know they made those things.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So, I mean, actually,
is it gerbil run, hand cranked? What is it? What are we?
Well, you got to get the hamster model.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, so
perfect.
Get a few extra pellets in there and let it go nuts. But in all honesty, it's opened my eyes to some other alternatives, and I don't even think we're going to have the county come out and do it. I think we're going to go with our own generator.
Wow.
At least if I invest $10,000 in something, I can take it with me if I decide to move. So, and since that's the only component that I'm operating, it's actually a cheaper solution than having 3-phase put in, which stays there when I leave.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, but
I will say that's that's something I think even when customers order dryers, electric dryers,
yeah,
they can come in 3-phase or single phase. But a lot of those, you can actually switch on site to either single or triple, depending.
Yeah.
I think even Manny learned something new on this one, that most of the time you can even do that with volts on site. You can switch it from one to the other.
Right.
Unfortunately, apparently with this model, apparently you can't.
Apparently you can't.
Apparently you can't. So, well, other than that, how's it operating?
It's operating well, and like I said, all the girls in the facility love it. They love the fact that there's no compressor pumping behind them, which is nice. So we need a tissue here. Sorry.
Sound good. Do you think it was worth the investment?
Yeah, I think that in the long run it's going to be a great fit for us. It operates well. It's smooth, and we're getting nice crisp prints out of it. The one thing that I think you don't realize is that those little technology boosts over the years play a big role. So when your equipment's 10 years old, you're 8, 10, 12, 14 technological advances behind. And some of the just, being able to skip a pallet and, things like that, where normally you would print a pallet and then, hopefully it didn't rip any emulsion off, and hopefully you don't have a screen to go replace. That's a nice feature, and I can't tell you how many times I've yelled from the office that there's no money in printing pallets, because it does happen.
Oh, for sure.
And this is going to help eliminate some of that, and that's a nice little perk. The ability to do, print, flash, print, and back it up is a nice feature. There's a lot of things that I think people would like about it, that if you're running on a 10-year-old piece of equipment, you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah. It's the old you don't know what you don't know.
Yep. So, I mean, it's almost like people have no idea how awesome it is to be on an auto, not a manual even, so that jump is significant, and that's kind of what this is like. So it's kind of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of talking about, what is that process, and why don't you give a rundown of what we are talking about today?
Sure. I had a great week. Thanks for asking.
I did say, well, how was your week? And then you asked me some questions.
It happens.
All right, well, hang on. How was your week?
Actually, it was
All right, what were we talking about?
No, actually, it was a really good week. It was a really busy week. Our new service tech and I went down. We got training on the Mamaki DTF systems, which was really eye-opening for me in regards to how different it is than the Chinese units.
Yeah.
It's dramatic.
Nice.
I mean, it's dramatic. The sheer fact that I could literally hit print. It literally runs like a desktop printer. Like literally you could hit print and have it run for 8 to 12 hours and nothing other than putting in ink. I mean, literally there's no banding, there's no nothing. It just runs. And then just to see the tech that's in it, and as well as how simplistic it is it's pretty kind of amazing. The other thing it helped us do is really gave us some talking points, and we started establishing, how do we want to run service? What kind of a service call response time do we have? What kind of, service are these things are we going to experience? And how often are we going to be servicing these things? And how do we wrap a service contract around that? And so it led to a lot of really eye-opening and interesting conversations. And I think it's going to fit into what Blue Ridge is all about and what we're trying to give to our customer base in regards to best-in-class products. I think it's going to be a Chinese printer killer. I really do. I think it's the beginning of the end of the Chinese units.
Good.
So,
in all honesty, as you know, we've spent the last year really researching DTF printers, costs, material costs, things like that. So the nice thing is that I really think the Mamaki, just the fact that it stirs the white and doesn't have, you don't have to clean the heads constantly, and I think that's I think it's going to save the heads, so you don't have to replace them as often, which is, I don't know, $1,200 is a new head.
yeah, they're not cheap.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So being able to just take care of that stuff, I think people are going to be happy with the new Mamaki stuff. I know that's kind of how we made our decision.
Oh yeah, I think as far as a brand, you really can't beat the Mamaki. It's just in the brand. The other cool thing I think for us being the what's the word I'm looking for, the sole distributor for the Mamaki DTF line in the South. The one thing we're learning is not one thing we're learning, but the cool thing is we've got Mamaki right down the street.
Right.
We've got, Mamaki's U.S. headquarters is in Atlanta. So God forbid we run into something that we can't fix or that seems to be a technical, I have no idea. The cool thing is they're right down the street. So if we need them, they're literally going to be there in 2-3 hours. No matter where in our region, you might have a printer, they're going to be there. So it's kind of nice to have Big Brother as your backup.
Sure. Yeah. It is nice. Yeah. Anything else going on this week?
Yeah, we're hiring people, which is awesome. So we've hopefully had a final interview for a sales rep for Virginia. Now we're looking for South Carolina. Like I said, we already hired our service tech. So it's an exciting time. It's nerve-wracking, but it's
They're
exciting.
expensive times too, aren't they?
I will say it's tough when screen printing doesn't do a lot in January and February. So to be bringing on all these new expenditures before the screen printer's volume starts kicking back up again is it's a little nerve-wracking. But it's all worth it.
Makes you start going to the whip in the first turn.
It does. But in all honesty, it's worth it. It's we know it's the right thing to do. It's the right direction to go in, and we know all of our customers will benefit from that.
Nice.
As the year goes on. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting stuff. Congratulations.
So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So here's you're about to start a brand, right? So let's get down to business, right? So that's really what this week's podcast is about. Is hey, I want to start a brand. Now what, right? And then. But let's go through the steps of, hey, I want to do a brand. Now what? How do I outsource? When do I know when to bring stuff in? Then how do I grow from there? So I think it's a big topic.
I do too, and I think one of the things that really almost has to start is most people aren't starting a new brand. Most people are starting a new hobby. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things is that I think you have to recognize that this is not just printing shirts for your fantasy football league. This is like I'm gonna offer this as a service outside of just a few buddies of mine. And that's one of the things, that's when you first get to that brand stage. So at least that's what I've noticed. What are your thoughts?
I think almost everyone starts it as a side hustle, right? So it's whether you're starting it as a side hustle because, a bunch of your buddies want you to do shirts for them, or hey, you see this as a way of making extra money. Hey, I can print at night,
yep.
Or I can transfer at night and on the weekends, and it's a way that I can, eventually if I want to start my own business, it's an easy transition. But the reality of it is it's a great way of making some money on the side that Uncle Sam may or may not know about, and your entry point of starting a business like this is actually fairly low.
It can be, yeah. It definitely can be. I think I've shared this with you in the past. We got into this business just ass backwards. My son was in college. His lacrosse team needed uniforms, and so he was in charge of getting that. He spent 3 weeks finding the best price and the best product, and he orders it all, and they're like, yeah, we'll have it to you at the end of May. And he's like, well, our season ends at the end of April. And he's like, that's probably not going to work well. And so, he begged them to ship them out earlier, and they just couldn't do it. And in order for him to meet his team's need, he was desperate. So we bought some equipment. We got into this as heat transfer people with dye sublimation and that kind of stuff. And it actually, there was no real thought that we were going to do this as a long-term business. I was just pulling his ass out of the fire a little bit. And then I realized I just bought, several $1,000s worth of equipment. So I was like, you work for me now.
For $300 worth of shirts.
Right. Yeah. Luckily there was quite a few uniforms, but we definitely broke even at best on that. And I was like, well, now that I own this stuff, you need a job and you work for me. And he wasn't thrilled about that, but eventually it became a little bit more of a side hustle, but it didn't really turn into a brand until we started really thinking, well, we could do more than this than just print my lacrosse team stuff. So anyways, I think that's one of the big things is to just recognize when this is no longer a hobby, this is no longer like, oh, I got this equipment in the basement that I can pull out if I need to, and have it set up, have it operate as a business. So even if it's a side hustle, right? Even if it's just a part-time thing, you still don't want to have it buried in the basement.
Oh, for sure. It's so I think for most people who are looking, especially in today's side hustle is a little different, especially in regards to startup, because if we look at startup, before the DTF revolution. Okay, I want to start a side hustle, start my own brand. Well, now I'm going to have to get a manual and an exposure unit and a dryer or heat gun. Don't ever, the power of the heat gun. so there was a lot
Low
of
power.
more power,
Low power.
or low power. Yeah, it took forever to cure a shirt with a heat gun. But my point being is that there's a lot of low cost ways of getting into it at that point in time. But that's historically how you had to do that.
Yeah.
Where I think today, there are so many service bureaus that do DTF that as long as you got your graphic
Yeah.
and as long as you can produce a graphic, then hey, I think getting into either having your own brand or starting the business as a whole, you don't really need equipment other than a heat press.
Yeah, you just need some connections.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, and your two-headed heat presses today aren't very expensive. I mean, you're looking at $3,800, right, for a heat press, for a two-headed heat press. You can do a lot of volume on a two-headed heat press. Yep. So, okay, great. Now I'm looking at investing $3,800. That's it. Yep. That's my total investment to get into the garment decorating industry. That's not bad, right? That's a fairly low-cost entry point.
I agree. Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you have that kind of hobby going, and then it becomes more of a side hustle, like at what point do you decide, hey, this should be a business? Like I can replace income with this.
So I think once you get to a point where you're outsourcing DTF on a regular basis, and it's not once a week or once a month.
Yeah.
Once I'm getting to the point where I've got quite a few orders every week, right? I've got 2 to 3 a week, right?
Okay.
Or even one every day.
Sure.
Okay, well,
one every day seems obvious to me, right?
Yeah.
Like if you got an order every day, then obviously you probably need to bring in some of the control of how fast it gets turned over, the quality, those type of things.
We have the other, and I will say for everyone it's scary, right? So for me to go from a side hustle, a side gig, to leaving my job and doing this full time, I think a couple of things you might want to look at too is not just that if I'm doing it every day. Because if I'm doing it every day, especially if it's transfers,
Yep.
okay, so I'm transferring a couple hours every night, I can continue to do that, right, or on the weekends.
Sure.
I don't really have to leave my job to continue to do that. But I think a couple of things one would want to ask itself is, hey, do I like it, right? Do I enjoy doing this, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's not really work. So do you enjoy doing it? If you enjoy doing it, then you have to realize this isn't really work. This is fun. This is your passion, right? This is what you want to do. So if that's what you want to do, okay, then that's not really a side hustle anymore. Then it's, okay, can I make a go at this? Can I make money doing it? Yeah. And at that point in time, you got to ask yourself, okay, if I'm no longer doing my real job, if I actually leave my real job and actually do this full time, how much money can I make? Can I sell? Am I any good at it? Or is this just my buddies? What niche market am I going after? Do I want to market a particular niche market? So at that point in time, I think you gotta formulate a business plan to figure out, okay, is this something I can do?
Yeah, that's an important process. One of the things I talk to our kids a lot of days, they talk to me about ideas that they have and things they'd like to do, and I really think that's a critical step in taking it from anything from like, I like this, I want to make some money at it, put a business plan behind it. Because once you put a business plan behind it, we all have things that we like and enjoy, but inside of all of that, there's still parts of it that are not enjoyable. Like, I don't care how much you like screen printing, cleaning the screen sucks. And so at the end of the day, they have to be done though, right?
Oh yeah.
Without clean screens, you have problems. So I think it just gives you an idea of what hurdles and obstacles are out there. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if there's anybody that's left the industry because they don't like cleaning screens. But it is a necessary evil that a lot of people don't really factor in.
Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing about doing a business plan is you really find out where your break-even point is, and you realize how many jobs I got to do for me to actually, what's my break-even, right? So, and what I mean by break-even is where do I replace the income I just left, right? So if I'm making $40,000 a year, okay, well, if I'm going down the DTF direction, okay, how many transfers do I have to do every single day to make up my $40,000, right? And then how long is it going to take me to get there? And do I think it's achievable?
Right.
And from someone who's in the industry, I'm going to tell you it's not a lot. It's pretty quick. Like, you can make that pretty fast, and then it's just a matter of, okay, what niche market am I going to go after? Because the reality of it is if I don't know what niche market I'm going after, I don't know where to market myself. And the shotgun approach really doesn't work in this industry. It really doesn't.
Sure. The nice thing about putting that business plan together is it forces you to look at some other things. So if you're replacing $40,000 worth of income, at some point you're busy pressing these. Mm-hmm. You're busy making shirts. Who's selling? And if you're constantly in that sales lull, that roller coaster ride of, I have tons of sales, I have tons of work to do, tons of sales, tons of work to do. That can be exhausting too. So just having a good idea of like how much can I get done in a 40-hour work week or 50-hour work week. I know 40-hour work week seems obsolete now, but 50-hour work week where I press so much and I sell so much, and I have these 6 hours where I do the books and all that stuff. I think it's critical. Like a business plan, I really think is a critical step in this.
Oh, it absolutely is, and I think in part of that is, as a business owner, there's no such thing as a 40-hour work week. You know what I mean? If you're going into this going, hey, I'm going to have great work-life balance, right? This isn't for you, right? Stick with work. Don't try to own your own business. Don't try to do it on your own. Because unless your idea of work-life balance is all work, no life, right? So, but again, that's why I was trying to say is, if this is something you enjoy doing, and this is something that you're passionate about, and you love doing it, then it's not really work. So, hey, putting in 80 hours a week isn't that big a deal because, hey, I'm enjoying doing it. But I think that begs the question then is okay, when I get doing that, couple of red flags is, am I printing the whole time during the day? Right?
Yeah.
Am I avoiding making sales calls because I'm printing? Right? A lot of people do that, right? So, I didn't make any calls today because I was printing, right? No, you're just avoiding the phones, right? So it's realizing that in my opinion, one of the keys to success is making sure you're blocking off at least 4 hours a day to make phone calls.
Or a number of phone calls. Yeah, 25 calls a day.
Yeah. So, and then also during that 4 hour period, I'm following up on emails because no one wants to get an email from you at 8 o'clock at night. Right? Because the reality of it is at 8 o'clock at night, you can be screen printing. That's not necessarily during office hours.
Right.
So make sure that you've got at least 4 hours of the day that, hey, I'm making sales calls and I'm not screen printing or I'm not doing transfers.
Doing art or
right?
whatever.
So then you got to look at yourself going, okay, is this something I'm comfortable doing?
Sure.
And I think if all of your answers to all of that is, yep, I've done my business plan. Yep, I don't mind calling people at all. I don't mind rejection. And I love this industry, and I just want to make really cool artwork and my canvas just happens to be shirts, and this is what I'm good at, then, in my opinion, go for it. Make that leap. And
so you've answered all the questions, yes, and so welcome to the club?
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the tattoo club.
Yeah, so then it's... Exactly. So then the question is okay, so when do I start outsourcing? If I've got some screen printing in, great. When do I stop outsourcing that? Do I even want to bring that in? Maybe I've got DTF and I quit outsourcing that, and so I'm bringing DTF in, but when do I want to bring screen printing in, if ever? There's a lot of directions you can go. The reality of it is when it comes to any of that, in my opinion, it's control and turn times.
Sure.
It's what your customers are asking you to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think at some point if you're a priority enough to somebody where they're still doing your turnaround times, there's not a significant advantage to doing it monetarily in-house. I mean, if you get a wholesale relationship with somebody, you can get DTFs or screen printing done at contract printing costs that are, significantly lower than most. If you were trying to replicate that in your own shop, I think you'd struggle to even meet that price initially. And so this isn't a like I'm going to do it all in house and make a ton more money. This is like I need to have more control over how quickly these get turned over. I need to make sure the quality is good. There's the necessity for those things is by far more than just the profit margin.
Yeah, I will say, as soon as you bring screen printing in-house, I guarantee you will lose money. You absolutely will lose money when you first bring it in because you don't know how to screen print.
Yeah.
And you're going to F up a lot of shirts.
Yeah, you're buying a lot of extra shirts.
You're buying a lot of extra shirts. So, and those first couple of jobs, I'm sure we've all been through it, and you look back and you're like, oh, I can't even believe I even sold that to a customer because it looks horrible. But that's part of it, right? So there's a couple of customers that we've even see evolve, and sometimes you evolve really quick. Sometimes within a year you've picked up that skill really quick, and you're going from a manual to an auto. Others not so much. Everybody's a little different. I think everybody's path is different. I think everybody's niche market's different.
The big mentality is whether it's good or good enough. So we see that a lot with the difference between how we feel about a print and how some of our employees feel about a print is they feel it's good enough, and we're like, no, it has to be good.
Yeah, I would say setting print standards. I think that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, that's
a big topic. So let's get into, how do I know when to stop outsourcing? Like, what do I get to a point where I'm going, whether that be screen printing or DTF? When am I ready to bring this stuff in house?
So, like I said, I think the real thing is that when you're not getting the turnaround time or the priority from somebody that you need, or when it becomes where you could actually bring it in and save a few pennies on the DTF. In all honesty, that's where the big question I think comes in is like, what do you bring in? And so that I think that factors into this as well. So some people just don't have the space to bring in, screen printing. They're in their garage, and that takes a lot more space. I think a DTF you can make work a lot better than some other.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say the first thing you need is space, right? Yeah. So if you need a garage, preferably a two-car garage.
Two-car garage, yeah.
Or a basement.
Yep.
Both work good. So the other thing is family life, right? So are you okay giving up the garage space? Is your wife or husband okay with you, or partner okay with you giving up the garage space or basement?
And are you okay living and working in the same building that your wife is in? That's a big one.
Yeah. Turning your house into your own personal prison because you never leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, which I will say, for me, I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
I did. I love doing that. It did not suck. And the cool thing is actually being home when your kids get home from school was cool. Having the flexibility of your significant other having an office job when your kids are at school, of school age kids, I think was, at least for us, was great.
I'm sorry, did you say cool age kids?
School age kids.
Okay, because there's no cool age for kids.
I disagree with that. I think right before they hit their teenage years, I really enjoyed my kids from about 6 to about 10.
Okay.
And in that 4-year period, they were up for anything, right? But whatever you want to do. But anyway, that's. I mean, we're getting off topic a little bit, but wow, you've completely derailed me.
Good.
I was on a roll.
I know. We had to back you down a little bit before you went into full on
Aaron mode,
full on preacher mode. So one of the things about when you bring this in is, do I have the space for it? Do I have the facility? There's some of those things. There's some family issues to deal with, all those things. But the real thing is that is this something that you're going to commit to? This is kind of the interwoven tapestry of this, is that am I going to commit to making sales every week? Am I going to commit to getting my print jobs out every week? Because if you can't commit to that, like if other things in your life have more importance, and that may be legitimate, then you have to continue with outsourcing.
Oh, for sure. And then, you had asked me earlier off camera, what do you bring in first, DTF or screen printing? And I think it just depends on the market you're going after, which market of yours is bigger. So if I'm outsourcing more screen printing, I'd probably bring in a manual.
Right.
If I'm outsourcing more DTF, then I'd probably bring in the DTF first. If my business is pretty split, I'd probably bring in both. And the reality is while I'm screwing up screen printing, I'm still making money on DTF. Right? So the DTF is keeping me afloat while I'm learning the skill of screen printing. And
well, that's one of the things I think we kind of, when I asked you that, I think we had talked about that the DTF process has a lot less technical, fundamental knowledge needed for it.
Oh, especially on the artwork side. I mean, as long as you have a 300 DPI, 300 DPI PNG file, or really any file, you can print it.
Right.
It prints just like a desktop printer. Where, with screen printing, I gotta learn art. I gotta learn Illustrator or Photoshop. I gotta learn how to do separations.
Yep.
I gotta learn how to burn screens. There's a whole skill set there that you're not gonna learn overnight.
Just coding screens can be quite the process.
Yeah. To understand the sheer muscle memory and to learn the muscle memory, and it is not for the lighthearted. I mean,
that's the thing. There's so much minutia in it, and it all has a technical necessity. Like learning how to code screens well is essential to having good screens. Good screens are essential to having good, film print or negatives. Good art on your screens is essential to having good prints. I mean, they all start layering on each other. One little detail at the very beginning off, everything's off.
Oh, for sure. I will say that, but today, unlike the yesteryears, we do have an advantage. There's so many videos out there on learning how to screen print. Not all of them are good, but the reality is there's a lot of information out there to learn how to screen print and learn. Even if you haven't even found a screen print advisor or a screen printing advocate or coach, if you have not found that person, there's still a lot of information on the internet for you to learn that, but it's repetition, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah, one of the things that because we went through that process, we spent a lot of time, Googling it, and one of the things that we noticed is that
by the way, in no shape or form is Google a sponsor of this podcast. Sorry, keep going.
Nice.
Sorry, I felt I needed a disclaimer there.
All right. Well, we went out, we looked it up online. Sorry for the faux pas.
There you
go. And one of the things we noticed was that a lot of the people that were giving technical advice had 30 years experience, but some of it was 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And some of it that wasn't 30 years old, they were going through it at such a pace where, they were skipping over the minutia. They were just like, you just rip it up, and then put it in you're done. And I'm like, I know nothing from watching this. There really is a lot of detail to learning screen printing, which is why, to me, it makes more sense to start with DTF, because the technical knowledge required for that is like, do I know how to use a printer?
Yeah, I would agree. But I would also say if you want to know how to screen print, there's a lot of classes to be had.
Yes.
So you can go, whether it's at any of the trade shows, your local supplier. Everybody's going to have a screen printing class, and I would recommend doing that, because then you can actually find a screen print coach.
Yeah. Do you guys offer a screen print class?
We do.
Nice. Yeah. I think it's essential to get with your supplier as well, because they're the ones that are providing the products that you use. They know how they're put to use the best. There's a lot of suppliers out there that don't have the experience or don't have the knowledge or whatever, so it's important to find the right supplier as well as the right, like you said, a coach.
100%. I would say even with that, if you take a screen print class at one supplier, don't stop there, but don't take that class from that supplier again. So if you take a beginning class from one supplier, your next class needs to be from a different supplier.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm saying that is you'll find out from that second supplier what the first supplier missed.
Yep.
And what he did not teach you.
Or glossed over.
Correct.
Yep.
So it gives you, or instead of maybe even if you really like your supplier, instead of taking a class from another supplier, maybe you take that class at a trade show.
Sure.
Or maybe a one-on-one class with that supplier. So you can, and he can come to you and you can weed through that minutia. Because the advanced screen printing classes have to be more towards your niche, not necessarily the generalities of screen printing. So, so I think we went over, when you bring in the chicken or the egg, the DTF or the screen print, sometimes both, maybe one, maybe the other. Let's just leap forward a little bit. So let's leap forward a year, right? So hopefully in a year, you're doing a great job. You're making sales calls. You're busy as all get out. In fact, you've probably already bought your first DTF printer. Your manual business is going. So how do I know when to go from a manual to an auto?
Oh, yeah. Hopefully you're at that stage where you're ready to go to an auto, but, and not the, how do I get a fire insurance claim done? But, no, the real process behind that is to, this is one of the things I think a lot of this industry overlooks is when you model your efficiency. Like, if you're really good at manual press and you're doing a 2 or 3 color job, how many can you get done in a day? How many can you get done in an hour?
I don't know about an hour, but you can probably do 350 a day, is even I guess, probably.
Yeah, if you're if you're good at it, great at it even, maybe you can get 600 in a day.
Okay.
And is that enough? Is that enough efficiency for the orders you have in versus the time you need to meet your deadlines? Is that enough to keep you from working till 2 a.m. every night just to meet your deadlines? That's when you start talking about efficiency, I think what you have to look at is what's my top end speed at manual versus what's my top end speed at auto. 350, 600. Granted, people say they do 600 shirts an hour. They're not doing great quality, so let's not fool ourselves on that. But 350 shirts an hour on an auto is fully possible, and regularly possible. You can do that at 6-8 color jobs, and that's one of the things is that there's a bunch of different things. So you look at efficiency, you look at the kinds of jobs you're doing, more colorful jobs. It's super hard to do on a manual. Even if you have the headspace for it, it's still more difficult, more time consuming. Just spinning everything and doing it. Where if it's going around on itself, they all print at the same time. So it's like doing a one color job once it's set up right. So, those are the two big things we would have looked at had we started on the manual side of things.
I'm pretty sure you guys cheated.
We did. We went right to jail.
Mm-hmm. Do not pass go. $300. Yeah. So I would add a little bit more to that, and that is if you are finding yourself on the sales roller coaster, which is, okay, I spent some time selling, got a ton of orders in, and now I'm cranking those orders out. Well, crap, now it's dried up. And it's dried up because I spent all this time printing, which is kind of why I said you got to make sure you're giving yourself at least 4 hours a day to not just screen print, but to actually work and get business, right? So,
but that's nice.
Flumburger right there. Yeah, it's nice. So going back, it's hey, how many? Am I on that roller coaster? Am I not getting enough sales calls, or I only can get sales calls in when I'm done printing, and then I had enough business for 2 weeks, and then so I've cranked out those 2 weeks, but now I got no more orders. Well, I got no more orders because I've been out selling. So now I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks selling, and then spend the next 2 weeks printing, and then you get this revenue roller coaster that's just like this. And I think, in my opinion, once you've hit that spot, you're 6 months behind when you should have gotten an auto.
Yeah,
you waited a little bit too long, which is okay, but you should have gotten it earlier, because you can't get to that point where, you're just crushing it. Your elbows are hurting, your shoulders are hurting, and
you're still behind.
I'm still behind.
Yep. And you're still feast or famine.
Yeah.
So one of the things about that is I think having, we talked about a business plan, but we also talked about like an efficiency model. And it's like you're only making money when the press is turning, right? Like the sales calls feed the press, the marketing feeds the press, but you only make money if the press is turning. And so the press is only turning if you're there 8 hours between setup and tear down and clean outs and whatever else. It's never turning 8 full hours, or rarely, I should say.
Oh, rarely.
Yeah. So when you look at my efficiency is 55% of the day it's not running, or 45% of the day it's not running, that tells you like, oh, I have more capacity. But when you're like, oh, I'm at 75, 80%, like if I get one big job, that puts me over 100. And that's really where you have to start looking at, if I'm consistently running at 70, 80% of my time is printing, I think you have to start looking at the next level.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, we've used that model into our pricing even. So it's a big component for us on how we evaluate how much work we're getting out, what our necessity is for when we need to add another press, whether we're priced right. All of that stuff is factored off of our efficiency model.
Yeah, I would say, so to add to that, I think part of it though too is there's a weird phenomenon that happens when people move from a manual to an auto. Because everyone's scared because, there's this big bogey on my back now. I've got this loan out there for my auto.
Yeah.
How the hell am I going to feed it? Because the reality of it is I've only been able to do between 350 shirts a day, and based upon that, maybe I'm break even. It's a weird phenomenon. And everybody who goes from a manual to an auto, if you don't believe me, ask anybody who's gone from a manual to an auto, and it happens. And within 30 days, your auto is fully packed. I mean, you've got every job that you can possibly think of. In fact, now you've got lead times.
Yep.
And everybody asks me how that phenomenon happens, and it's exactly what we were talking about. I actually have time during the day to make sales calls.
Sales calls, yep.
Where before, so if I'm doing 600 a day, right, and no time to make sales calls, well, now I'm doing 350 an hour. That 600 took me 2 hours to do.
Right.
Now I've got the rest of the day to make sales calls.
Yep.
And it's amazing how that drives your business and gets your business cranking.
Yeah, I think that was the big factor in our, once we, started operating the manual with T-shirt specialty, is that we made huge sales leaps because we were focused on getting on the phone, and we weren't, we could print in half the day and we could operate the phones the other half of the day, and that we had good balance there. To the point where it made sense to bring people on to run the press so you can continue being on the phone. So there are some ways to continue looking at how do I expand. The real thing is that, I have always thought efficiency models are the way. I'm happy to post some efficiency model stuff out there if people want to use it. That's fine. And we had talked earlier about a business plan. I have a business plan that we can put as a link.
That'd be awesome. So for all you guys out there, at the end of this video, down below, you will be able to see the links for both his efficiency model as well as, what other model are you going to put down there?
The business plan.
Oh, the business plan.
A business plan template.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And it has some financial aspects of it, so you can plug in, like these are projections on what I might do, so you can get an idea of how long is it going to take to recoup the $40,000 it takes to get in, or the $40,000 you were getting as a salary, that kind of stuff.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So I will say, as you guys go through any of these steps and evaluating, I would say, contact a textile advisor or a screen print advisor, because the one thing I will say, you can't start a business without a business coach. You really can't. So, but just like a business, with screen printing, you don't just need you need a business coach for the business end. But for the screen printing end, you really need a screen print advisor and or a screen printing coach.
Yep.
You really, really do. I can't stress that enough is, there's nothing worse than getting, started on the wrong foot. So
Well, I think that's kind of where we have a unique dynamic here in that you have a ton of knowledge in ink and printing and things of that, and I have a ton of background in business and finance, and so I think.
Sorry, you started talking about business and finance.
Yeah. Duly noted. I noticed that both of the links were finance related. So, yeah. Thought you were injured at first. I was like, man, is he having a heart attack? What's going on? But yeah, so business and finance is much more boring, but that much more critical.
Oh, vital.
Yeah.
Vital.
So, but I think the nice thing is that we have this unique aspect of, hey, how does this printing world work from the finance side of it and the technical side of it? And I think that this could be a very useful source for people.
No, absolutely.
So
absolutely. So, what's in store next week for our lovely podcast followers?
I'm a little excited about it because we've actually made the leap to this company recently, and through you, and so we are going to wrap it up. I'll tape it.
Nice.
We're going to bring in a tape expert so that we can kind of talk about the different kinds of tapes that are out there, but what some advantages of PMI tape is.
Oh, absolutely. So for you guys who don't know it, if you've never met Andrew from PMI, great guy, really knowledgeable on proper taping techniques for screens. Yep. So that'll be exciting.
It will be exciting.
You wouldn't believe how many people I've run into who still use masking tape.
Yeah, you'd be shocked at how many people don't realize the necessity of doing a good tape job. I mean, we've seen screens where you got ink just smushing out the sides and the corners, and luckily we've always been aware of that, but not everyone is. They're fine with running the after chemical on it. So cool.
So, well, hey, join us next episode for Drew from PMI, and until next time.
Yeah, thanks for stopping in. We look forward to seeing you again.
Take care.
Bye now.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like